So great seeing my next guest back in the cage. She's going to be taking on Aspen Ladd at UFC Fight Night, August 13th. It's Sara McMann, live from the car right now. Sara, how are you?
I'm good. I find that it's easier in the car away from kids that want my attention and people in my gym talking to me. So I kind of hide away in my car.
I was just going to compliment you. That's a veteran move, right? It's quiet. The lighting's good. You covered all bases here, so I appreciate it. The car is, any fighters watching this, the car is a good place to do an interview. Let's talk about you, though. I mentioned it there. It's great to see you back. We haven't seen you since March. Was this the right amount of time off, or are you hoping to get in there a little bit sooner?
I was asking for International Fight Week just because anytime that I don't get really injured, I want to fight like really soon right after that. But typically whenever I fight girls, they ask for 4 months or so to get ready. So I end up having to wait longer anyway. So.
And I know one fight you wanted to get, and you talked about this with my buddy Drake Riggs, was the whole thing with Germaine Durandamy, which I got confused by because you didn't really call her out. You were just saying, hey, I'd like to fight her, and she took it the wrong way. I guess my question to you there is, were you surprised by her response? Because I don't think you were like saying, I need to fight her or anything like that. You were just saying, hey, this would be a good fight.
Yeah, I was surprised by the response because I didn't hear anything the whole time I was asking to fight her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised because somebody else told me. I didn't like just make it up in my own head. Like somebody else said, oh yeah, she's retired. I've asked about fighting her too. So I was like, oh, okay, well, if she retired, that makes sense. That makes sense why I didn't hear anything. But for her to be like, stop the bullshit. I'm like, I'm a grown woman. I don't bullshit. Like I'm real. So,
yeah.
Let's fight then. That's fine with me.
Well, have you heard any update as to what's happened to her? Because she hasn't fought since October 2020. Like, I think it would lead a lot of people to think she is retired, especially with, getting up in age and everything. Like, I would imagine it was a logical conclusion there.
Well, if I were her, I wouldn't retire. She's the last person to beat the champ. So if she wants another shot at UFC, title, then that's the way to go. So that's part of the reason why I chose her as well. It leads to the natural conclusion that if I beat the person who just beat Pena, it puts me right in line, So I just didn't really worry too much about it. Like, I'm not someone who goes around spreading lies. I'm not someone who stirs up drama. I said what I really thought that I believed, but then she kind of gave me what I want anyways, because she's like, yeah, if you want this smoke, I'll give it to you. So I was like, okay. That's what I was asking for all along. So that's
Well, I was going to say, hopefully she gets a fight book soon, because again, it's been a while. The division's sort of moving along. Let's talk about your last fight quickly. Cara Rosa, what a win that was. I know you might have liked the finish, but how just impressed were you with your performance in that fight?
It was a really good fight. I did find things that I feel like I could have done better. But I also when you're fighting people who are black belts, and she's a competition black belt. So she's not, and I'm not saying anything against people who don't compete that are black belts, but there's just they hold you back longer. There's a different criteria, and you're proven against other high level competitors. And so I thought I would win, and I didn't expect to win that, decisively. So I was really happy with that.
Yeah, no, like I said, I thought it was a really good victory. Let's talk about Aspen Ladd. This was a fight that actually was in the works, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2020. So I guess another question I had for you is just, does it make it a bit easier preparing for someone like Aspen, because you were already set to face her a little while back? I'm sure there was some strategy going on back then.
Yeah, yep. Actually, so the pandemic happened. It was tough to get training partners. And I was still training, but, not everybody was in training, and, it was just kind of a weird time. And I took the fight on I think it was 6 weeks notice or a little less. So this is more optimal. This gives me more time. It gives me, I'm already kind of in that mindset. I'm not before it was just everything was kind of up in the air, and I was trying to still train, but there's a difference than working on your growth and getting better and better, or just trying to struggle to find workouts. So, it's probably better for her as well, but it's definitely better for me.
Yeah. And of course she blew out her knee, I believe, at that time, or at least that was, I know she was dealing with some injuries. So, obviously getting a different fighter here as well, a little bit. From a style perspective, how are you looking at this fight? We know you for your wrestling. You've become a really well-rounded fighter as well. How are you looking at this fight from the match perspective?
For me, the way that I'm conceptualizing it is that everything is going to be a grind no matter where it is. So on the
Mhm.
feet, it's going to be a grind. On the cage, it's going to be a grind. Like I've just prepared for that, that in every area there's going to be work and movement there, so like it's going to be 15 minutes of like a good working pace. That's
Yeah.
basically what I've adopted. And there's different ways you can fight different fighters. Like if you're going against a Holly Holm or Jermaine, like they're more kind of snipers. So
Mhm.
you're preparing for that big strike that is well set up, that is really crafty. You're not preparing for like constant movement. So it's just different. It's a different thing, but it's closer to wrestling than the other one. So I'm a little bit more comfortable with it.
Who've been some of the main training partners for this camp that have been helping you get ready for this fight?
So I have a really great group, and I just stick with my main training partners. Like, so at my gym at Precision, I have people who can go ortho or southpaw. I have really high level grappling girls, and I have a variety of them. Like some are slick submission artists, some are great in guards, some are great on top. Like I have like a good group of jiu-jitsu girls and a great group of smaller guys that they're better than any of the opponents that I'm going to face in the UFC. So I don't need to really like go far for it. They'll watch my opponents and every day they're mimicking it. So it's good.
Do you watch tape, or is that something your coaches do? Because some fighters are different about that.
I think that I watch tape. I always
Mhm.
do. And I have like a lot of years of experience competing. And so I watch not just for technique, because my coaches really pick apart the actual technique and what things they think will work the best. But I watch for more of like the psychological and the athletic perspectives whenever I watch fights. Like, where do they lose confidence? Where do they start breaking down? What things, where do they rally the troops? Where, like all of the different aspects that make someone like lose a fight or win a fight. Where are the pivotal points for them? They have to get this, or that's it. The fights, they're out of the fight, things like that.
How do you envision the fight playing out on August 13th? How do you see this one going down?
Uh, Oh, obviously, me winning. I
Mhm.
think she's going to be hard to put away. Like I hope for a submission, but I think that she's going to be hard to submit. So I think it's going to be grueling 5 minutes, and I'm going to take her down and control her and land short strikes and keep advancing position. But I mean, unless she makes a big mistake, um, it'll be hard to finish a submission on her.
Yeah, no, very durable. At the top of your weight class, so we have that, obviously the title fight coming up, a couple weeks before you, Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena. I was just curious, as someone who's fought Pena, how do you sort of see that fight playing out in the rematch? Because there's kind of two schools of thought, right? There's the school of thought that Juliana really did have her number, and then there's another thought that, hey, Nunes might have not been on her game that night, whether it was COVID or just her gassing out. So how do you assess this rematch? I was just curious.
I think Nunes was definitely not on her game that night. I think that 100% plays into it. Um, I think she and this happens with people who have a lot of success. It's hard for them to imagine it not just happening, like they kind of get a type of confidence that it's understandable, but it ultimately leads to their downfall. It's hard to stay hungry when you're winning a lot. So I think we'll see a better Nunes. Um, and I think that it's going to be a very competitive fight. I think it's going to be a lot closer than it was the first time around. But Juliana has a really great gas tank, so she might end up still winning. Just not in the same fashion.
Nunes is actually the betting favorite. I don't know if you know that. Do you think that's fair just because of her history, or do you think Juliana really does have her number and she should be the favorite?
Um, no, I think that Amanda Nunes has put away enough people to get that nod.
Yeah.
She's fought a lot of really high level fighters in two different weight classes, so that's just kind of like saying that could have been a fluke, like because it could have been a fluke that she lost, and it could have been a fluke that Juliana won, because Juliana's lost to some higher level competitors, whereas Nunes has put them away in a pretty spectacular fashion. So I think that that's just like giving respect where respect is due.
Well said. I like the answer there. Back to you. How many more fights do you have left in your contract? Do you know?
Um, I think that this is my last fight on this contract.
Okay, because I was going to say, because the stakes would probably be pretty high. Obviously you want to come off a win. You're coming off a nice win in your last fight. You get one here. Do you like that though? Like when the stakes are kind of high like this, where if you go out there, let's say you finish Aspen Ladd, that's going to look good when you go back to the renegotiating table. Is that something you've thought of?
So I don't try to think too much about that. I really try to like eliminate everything outside of the actual techniques and what I need to do to win the fight, because that kind of will take care of itself.
Yeah.
But that being said, I kind of thought that I forgot that like because I was pregnant, there was an extension. So when I fought Lena Landsberg, I thought that was the last fight on one of my contracts, and I definitely stepped it up because of that. So I was like, I think like even if I try not to think about it, I think that like it pulls a little bit more out of me, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, no, but for sure. And I imagine you want to still keep fighting for a couple, like if you're still performing at this level, I assume age is not an issue. It's just like, let's keep fighting until I feel like I'm getting that decline. Is that kind of where you're at right now, especially with this big fight coming up?
Yeah, yeah. So like basically when my body or my desire starts to like say, we're not really in this anymore, then I'll be like, I had a great run. And so no matter where that is, I could fight a couple more fights, fight for the title, win it, and say, man, I want to fight for the title a few times before I retire. Or I could, fight this next fight and say, hey, I just don't love to do MMA anymore. Like my body's, doesn't want to do it. Like thankfully right now, my body is not the factor. And my desire obviously still there. I think my body's going to wear out before my before my drive does.
Right. Yeah. It catches up
Yeah.
to everyone, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, before we go, got to ask, I know, again, family's really big outside of the cage and stuff, but what's downtime looking like? What are you getting up to when you get that little bit of free time? Whether it's, maybe watching a little bit of Netflix, anything like that. What's going on downtime wise?
So I like to just get out in nature. I spend so much of my time like recovering at my house and being in the gym that I'm like, I need trees, I need water, I need hikes. I just want to be outdoors as much as I can. And so I don't do anything that uh, gets in the way of having really good training sessions. So on the weekends and then, obviously out of camp, I try to like get in as much of that as I can.
That's awesome. Good balance there, and good to get outside. A lot of these, especially these up and coming kids now, they're not getting outside enough. I'm with you there. Gotta enjoy what's around you. I think we miss it a lot, right? So there we go. Sara, thanks so much for doing this. I know you got to go to training. If there's anyone you want to thank, any sponsors, any social media you want to plug, I'll give you the last word.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to thank one of my main sponsors that like has stuck with me through pregnancy and everything is USANA, and they're an awesome sponsor, and they have great supplements and they have great uh, vitamins and nutrients. And then my gym, Precision. It's not supposed to be an MMA gym, but it kind of became one by default whenever I moved there. So it's just a great place to be, and most people are really happy whenever they come. So anyone should if you're in Northern California, you should stop by.